Welcome to Screw the Commute, the entrepreneurial podcast dedicated to getting you out of the car and into the money with your host, lifelong entrepreneur and multimillionaire, Tom Antion.
Hey everybody, it's Tom here with episode 242 of Screw the Commute podcast. I'm here with one of my mentors, my audio mentor, starting over 20 years ago. He got me into doing audio stuff and got me started in podcasting recently, and just a good old boy. And also, he's been around a long time. I've been around a long time. We're not one of these flash in the pan people standing in front of an aircraft they don't own, trying to tell you how to get rich. We've been in it for the long haul, been through thousands of customers and no complaints and no lawsuits. So when you hear this guy, he's the real deal. Now, hope you didn't miss episode 241. I told you all about QR codes. These didn't go too well in the beginning because you had to download an app to use them, but now the cell phones will read them automatically. So they're making a big resurgence, and they're really a cool way. You can get started for free using them. And it's a very short episode, but very powerful episode 241. On Mondays, I do an in-depth session on something that's either made me or saved me a lot of money. And on Wednesdays and Fridays, I do interviews with great entrepreneurs like Mike. All right, make sure you grab a copy of our automation ebook. It's a $27 ebook that you get for free for listening to this podcast. And it saved me 7.5 million keystrokes. We figured it out a couple of years ago, probably more than that now, on just one of the tips. And we're not exaggerating either. We actually figured it out. So it helps you handle way more customers and prospects without pulling your hair out. So you can grab that at screwthecommute.com/automate free, screwthecommute.com/automate free. And while you're at it, you might as well grab a copy of our podcast app. It's screwthecommute.com/app. That's APP. And it may be there when you listen to this, but we're working on a video to show you how to use all the fancy functions. But we already have screen captures of every little screen to show you all the cool things it'll do. So screwthecommute.com/app, APP. All right, our sponsor is the Internet Marketing Training Center of Virginia. It's a distance learning school which teaches legitimate techniques to make a great living, either working for someone else or starting your own online business. And I've been living this lifestyle since 1994 when the commercial internet started. So this is not any kind of book reports. This is stuff I've lived, and I've turned it into a school. It's the only licensed, dedicated internet marketing school in the country. And you can check it out in the show notes. And this is episode 242. So whenever you want to go to the show notes, it's screwthecommute.com/242. And the actual school is imtcva.org. It's a distance learning school. So check that out when you can. All right, let's get to the main event. Mike Stewart is president and founder of Stewart Internet Solutions. It's an internet consulting agency and services companies he's located in Nashville, Tennessee. And Mike has composed countless radio jingles, television scores, and produced and performed on music heard all over the world. He's worked with countless world-famous musicians like those from the Atlanta Rhythm Section, Alicia Bridges, even Isaac Hayes. Think about that. He has a gold record for an 80s hit called Pac-Man Fever. That's really cool. And as a band member, he was with Buckner and Garcia at the time when they got that gold record. And he also recorded the theme to Disney's Oscar-nominated movie Wreck-It Ralph back in 2012. Mike, are you ready to screw
Yes.
the commute?
Oh.
Yeah. Well,
Always.
We've been screwing the commute since I first met you, I think.
You were the mentor that got me going. And I was trading hours for dollars. That's the only way I knew how to make a living. And I made a good living trading hours for dollars. But you were an inspiration. You were the guy that said, Mike, put an ebook together. And I bet that was,
it's over 20.
18 or 19, 20 years ago.
It had to be over 20 because I've been here at the retreat center for 18 years. And this was when I was back in Maryland. So,
my goodness.
It's been a while. But
Probably,
But
what would that would have been 2000, right?
yeah, yeah.
Y2K.
Yeah, there you go. So yeah, so we helped each other out because you got me started in audio editing, and I tell everybody about and I gotta right in front of you here. I gotta imitate you. So folks, if you want to be an audio editor, and we're going to talk about podcasts today, and if you don't want to be an audio editor, okay, we're going to have a solution for you. But Mike's are you originally from Atlanta?
No, I'm originally from Tennessee. A little town
okay.
called-
Oh, you're back. Yeah, so you're back, but you still got a little accent there. So it says, Mike says, you want to be an audio editor? Says, first thing you got to do is record something. and then he says, and then you cut out what's bad and what's left is good. And
That's it.
That's I'll never forget that. So tell everybody what you're doing now, and we're going to talk about podcasting today and how great it's been for your career and people that you've helped, and certainly for my thing. And I poo-pooed it for a long time because nobody was making any money, but that's changed significantly now.
Well, all podcasting is, and we're going to get into more detail with that, and I want to kind of talk about what I've been doing lately, is it's on-demand bingeable radio. That's all it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's the fact that if the content is great, you can build an audience, and then the advertiser is you. And it's a very simple principle. And I think a lot of people become very intimidated with technology. I remember you were the guy that, when you laugh about I always remember, dumb it down, Mike, dumb it down, make it easy. That's
right,
too hard.
Right.
And I'm going, well, no, it's not hard. Yes, it is. Okay. I believe you, Tom. I believe.
Yeah, it's not hard for you, an audio engineer with a gold record.
Yeah. But you don't need that. That's a whole nother world.
Right.
That's not what you need to do. But any rate, since I was a kid, going all the way back into the 60s, we all loved the Beatles and the Stones and the British invasion, right when rock and roll just became what it was. And there's still millions of baby boomers that still love that period of music. There was just so much great music from there. And of course, what you all wanted to do is even John Lennon went to an Elvis movie and said, that's a nice job. They wanted to be Elvis and Chuck Berry. So, you're inspired by the things that you love as a kid. And of course, most people, squash that dream and go get a job, and they commute.
Yeah.
Because that's how you're taught. Get a good education, get a good job, get a government job, all those things. I mean, that's what my dad said.
Yeah.
God bless his soul. He was a postman. He had a good government job working for the post office. And he said, I can't wait to retire. I just can't wait to retire. And then he retired and he was bored to death.
Mm-hmm.
And so I always loved the thing. A friend of ours, he said something always. He said, if you're not fired with enthusiasm, you'll be fired with enthusiasm.
Right.
And so I'm enthusiastic about what the creation of good audio content can do for building relationships.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm passionate about. Good to amazing, great audio content and video content. And that's why I got in the 70s and 80s, got into records, radio, jingles. And basically the only way you could deliver audio and video was either on tape or through broadcast. So I learned that business, and I was trading hours for dollars, like I said earlier. All I could do is, buy equipment and rent out my equipment to do it as a service for ad agencies, radio stations, songwriters, publishers, record companies. Those were our clients, and everybody couldn't do it. It took a special skill to be an audio engineer, and it took a lot of investment of equipment and a brick and mortar place. And for 20 years, made a great living. Put my kid, my kids never did without.
Mm-hmm.
But you talk about burnout. I'm 45 years old at the time, and I discovered this thing, the internet. And I was fascinated with it. And I'll never forget the night I saw Bill Gates David Letterman. I was a fan of late night TV. I love the formats. In fact, for podcasts, you can learn a lot by watching and studying late night TV. Late night TV has a formula. They have a theme song. They come out and they do a monologue. They do a bit. They have two guests, a music guest, and then they end with their theme.
Mm-hmm.
Johnny Carson developed that, 50 years ago.
Right.
And you can look at, Cohn and James Corden. They all the talk shows know that formula works, which we love as the public. So what I learned from that is late night TV and radio are great teachers. So when Bill Gates was on David Letterman one night, Dave says to Bill, "What's the deal with this internet thing?" And of course, Bill, I thought in his great wisdom, would say, "Well, it's the information superhighway. Al Gore invented it. It's going to change the world. You'll be able to buy underwear and socks, with the click of a mouse." I thought that's what I thought he was going to say in 1997, I think, when this show was on. And Bill said, "Well, you know what? You'll be able to listen to the radio on your computer." And my ears perked up. I said, "Oh my God, the internet is radio and television." And I understand radio and television, the principles of how it works. If the internet is radio and television, all you got to do is be a great content creator, and you can transmit your audio or your video to the world. And of course, Dave came back and says, "Well, that's dumb, Bill. Why don't you just listen to the radio on your radio?" He's old school broadcasting.
Right.
He didn't get it. Bill Gates in 1997 said he predicted the future. Netflix, Hulu, podcasting, streaming audio. I mean, all the things that we take for granted. I had no idea that the cell phone, the smartphone, was going to be arriving in the next 10 years. And I actually tell people all the time, Tom, I said, "What do you call this thing?" I'll hold up my iPhone and I'll say, "What do you call this thing?" And baby boomers say, "Well, it's a phone." I said, "No, it's a computer 1,000,000 times more powerful than the computer that got man on the moon."
Right.
It just happens to have a phone in it, and it's connected to the internet. It is a transistor radio. It is a television set. It is a grocery ordering device. It is it's a hotel booker. It's a car booker. I mean, the innovations because of this powerful smartphone computer the world's embraced it. I mean, to the point of 9.5 billion devices in the world, not counting tablets, home devices, and computers.
And a lot of places aren't even putting in phone lines anymore. They're giving out cell phones to people because it's cheaper.
Yeah. I mean, landlines is so 80s.
People in Africa that don't have that have a dirt floor have cell phones.
Right.
Yeah. So they're called smartphones because they make you feel so stupid when you can't operate them right.
Well, it's just they didn't call it software; they called it apps because it's a powerful computer. And it's connected to a network that can get on the internet. It is the ability for us to get our great content to that device and more. Because of Bluetooth technologies, smartphones will connect to the dashboard of cars. Now they're putting in apps right in the dashboard. And they're putting 4G and 5G connections. So the connectivity for audio and video content we're not waiting on it. It's here.
Yeah, and it's the podcast listenership has exceeded XM radio, and it's free.
Absolutely. It's because the cream rises to the top. And the beautiful part is in the old model of broadcasting, and I don't know if I ever told you my Ted Turner story, but you need millions of listeners for a network, or you need hundreds of thousands of listeners for a local broadcaster like a radio station or TV station to sell third-party advertising.
Right.
Okay. And a lot of podcasters, especially old radio people, don't get podcasting. They think build a podcast and go find an advertiser. And that's not your model. That's not my model. And I'll go into detail about that. Here's what's established. The reach and the radios are in place. The transmitter is in place. Make great content. That's it. And then the only advertiser is what makes you money. And be sure to have lots and lots of things, and at least high ticket items such as consulting. I know the consulting business is supposed to just explode because there are so many baby boomers with great experience that young people want, and they'd rather get it through a podcast than get it, on a vinyl album or a CD. They don't want to ship a CD. They want to listen to it on their phone.
Well, also, I was doing some research on promoting my school, and the school promotion consultants said, don't bother with webinars for the younger crowd. They won't sit down and watch them. It's all going to be audio. And still, I've always been preaching audio is the only medium where you can learn and do stuff while you're doing something else. It's the only one.
Yeah. And I know I got off on another tangent because you said, what am I doing today? Well, I kind of wanted to lay this foundation, and the foundation is I'm a musician, I believe a very good one. I'm a creative guy, and I recognize that the internet and mobile devices, all of the mobile devices, whether it's a dashboard or a car or a home device like an Alexa, they're all mobile devices. Are the transistor radios and the television sets of today. And, it's like my kids, they don't even own TV sets. They watch everything on their phones and tablets.
Right. Yeah.
And so the infrastructure is in place. But the difference between the infrastructure of the 40s, 50s, and 60s of radio and television, the broadcasts that I studied in the 70s and 80s, is that everybody wasn't allowed. In other words, you could be most creative human being in the world. Unless you paid big money, you weren't getting your content on cable TV or television or even radio. You could buy time on radio, but you could lose a lot of money to find out nobody cares.
Right.
And so the thing that I love about the internet and podcasting, the principles of radio and television that I worked many years to understand and know how to work in that world, apply to today, because all those old principles, and that's where a lot of the younger generation are ignoring the old principles that worked. But everybody's welcome, and you don't need hundreds of thousands of listeners to make money. You just need your audience that knows, likes, and trusts you to connect and engage with you. I used to say podcasting is the only social media that you own and control. I've had businesses of all type help me with my social media. I say, well, what media are you making worth being social? If the content, if you're just posting, happy Valentine's Day and cute little bunny rabbits, great. You're just clutter.
No, you need to post important stuff like what you had for lunch. Yeah,
that's what my wife does.
All right, now let me lay some groundwork here, though. So I'm
okay
because I want my podcast to compete at the highest levels. So I got a good microphone. I got a mixing board here. I got a computer interface. I got 2 backup things here. I got a compressor limiter. All the stuff you told me 20 years ago to get that I refused to get. But now you don't have to do that. If you got one of the things you should have is a decent microphone. But there's ways, and you have a way that people can get into podcasting without all this big array of stuff. And I had to pay $50 an hour to have somebody hook it up for me. Then I tried a Windows 10 computer, and then, I went down to the Mac store and I said, hey, if I was going to shoot a Windows 10 computer, should I use a pistol or a shotgun? Because it kept failing. It would work, and then the guy would leave, and the next day I'd boot it up and it would work again. It was just crazy. So I got a Mac to run it. So I had to buy a iMac. And so I had to do all this stuff to do a high quality podcast. Tell them how they could do it with just a good microphone.
Well, that's the whole thing is that, Tom doesn't do anything halfway. And you've never done that. You've always you were a successful speaker when I met you 20 years ago, and you were a successful marketer. And so, you spend the money to do it right.
And for the tax deductions.
Yeah. And if budget is no issue, it's not. When I was buying equipment to be an audio engineer with a recording studio and compete in the Atlanta market, I was borrowing hundreds of thousands of dollars. I said one time I have so many liens on my house it caved in. Because I didn't, my dad didn't have the money. I couldn't go to family and borrow the money. A multi-track tape recorder was, $30,000. None of that's all. The
that's
reason
all
I got
gone.
out of this, I got out of the studio business because I saw that a laptop computer and a microphone was a recording studio.
Exactly.
And let's relive that conversation. I don't remember who introduced us, but I get on the phone and Tom says, and this is what Tom says to me. He says, Mike, I travel a lot as a speaker. I have a really hot, powerful laptop of the day. I wonder what laptop you had 20 years ago, but it was state-of-the-art laptop. Yeah. I said, and it has a USB port. He says, what do I need to record audio and edit audio? So as an audio engineer, I said to you, well, you need a large diaphragm condenser microphone, a big microphone. You need a shock mount. You need a pop filter. You will probably want to put it on some sort of scissor boom or a boom stand. You need an XLR cable. You need to plug the XLR cable into a compressor limiter. From the compressor limiter, you need to have a multi-channel mixer. Now, you want to make sure the mixer has fan and power so that it'll power the microphone. And then you're going to need a USB to line level interface, and then you'll need some digital software, and I recommend Sony SoundForge, but there's a lot of them out there. There's Gold Wave.
I'm laughing because I remember this conversation vividly.
And I want to share with folks, as a audio engineer, I'm basically saying how to spell cat. Okay? Now get the perspective here. Now, Tom is a very brilliant man. I would never tell him on a podcast or to his face that he's a dummy. I would never do that. He could level me. So I'm never going to insult my buddy Tom. But I thought that was dumbed down. And Tom said, that's too much. That I don't remember exactly. You said it's too hard. That's too complicated. Dumb it down, Mike. Make it simpler. Is it simpler? I said, yeah, that's about as simple as it gets. He said, He says, well, see if you can figure out how to do it simpler. And I'll never forget this, folks. This I'm almost going to cry if I think about this. He says, here's my credit card number. Go figure out what I need and tack on a couple $100 for yourself. And I said, oh, no, Tom, I'm glad to help out a friend of a friend. He said, no, your information is worth it to me. And that was an aha moment for me, Tom. And that should be an aha moment for you as well. I mean, I didn't value my own information. I thought it was water, like you're asking for a glass of water. And you told me it was champagne and I should charge for it. So, anyway,
well, that's
it meant the world. I don't forget pivotal moments in my life. So that's how good
I forgot that one. But
if you want to edit this out, that's okay.
No, I forgot that. But
I didn't.
Just like I remembered that vivid phone call.
So I'll never forget. I went to the music store because the music store is where musicians would go buy recording equipment, microphones, and such. And I called you back and I said, Tom, I found a microphone, a box, and software. And you plug the microphone into the box and you plug the box into the computer and it works.
Beautiful.
He says, send it to me. You remember that?
Yep, I remember that.
And then it's software. It's not tape. Back when I was recording, it was multi-track tape. It was magnetic tape, and you had to put the reels on the machine and you run the machine back and forth. And it was a total, and you edited with a razor blade.
Yeah.
I remember when digital audio came about in 92, I had the first Pro Tools system in Atlanta, and we were like, kids in the candy store highlighting what was bad and what was left was good.
Right.
I mean, that's where that came from.
Right.
And in fact, I've got it here. I got to show you this. This is an old audio trick. We used to record a lot of narration, and I got a box here. I still keep this as a reminder. I've got a whole. In fact, I'm gonna send you one of these.
I got an Adderall sitting right here somewhere that I got from you. I got two of them.
They don't go bad. But at any rate, back then you couldn't mark your edits. So we found these clickers. In fact, I ought to send you one. Hey, this has got my own phone number on it. That's crazy.
No kidding. Yeah, I think I learned from you I didn't have the clicker, so I just snapped my fingers. Yeah.
We used to give the voice guy a clicker, and when he made a mistake, he would click, and that marked the mistake on digital.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because the old programs didn't have marking. So we learned to mark it with a clicker. So anyway,
I still actually do it by snapping a finger.
Well, I started figuring out you could snap your finger and didn't have to remember the clicker.
Right.
I've got a handful of them left here. I'm going to mail you a clicker just for old times'
that'd be great. Yeah.
So at any rate, my point that I'm getting across to is all these digital principles became evident that people could do it themselves. And you were, like I said, you were a big inspiration. Now, this is pre-podcasting. We were talking about making audio CD programs.
Yeah, it wasn't even CDs. It was a tape sometimes. Cassettes. Distributing on cassette in the early days. Yeah.
Right. So at any rate, as time went on and we learned more and the internet really became a broadcast medium, YouTube came along, proved that people will watch television on the internet. Netflix proved that Netflix is, in fact, it was interesting. Last week I saw a publishing, a broadcast publisher magazine mentioned that now CBS Network is having streaming only shows.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the Star Trek thing you can't get on CBS Net television. You have to join their membership site.
Well, they just about had to get in the game because Hulu and Netflix and Pluto and all these other ones were just stealing their business. They had to get in.
So obviously, get a show on Netflix. That's wonderful. But everybody can create content and get it to the world. Right next to my Netflix app is my podcast app.
Mm-hmm.
So that gets back to all of this experience of creating content and tips and tricks and shortcuts is what my years of experience taught me. And I said, okay, everything that worked in radio and television in the 80s and 90s works today on streaming, that's all podcasting is. It's streaming on demand audio. It is essentially a Netflix radio station. But you generally want to do it as a lead generator for business.
And it's infinitely easier to create audio than it is video.
Well, yeah, because you don't need to worry about lighting.
Yeah, you can have a bad hair day, and
you don't want to see my hair right now. but it's just it's talk radio. It's Howard Stern, Imus in the morning. I mean, he
passed away recently.
Yeah, he did pass away recently. Yeah. But I'm just saying there were great interviewers and talk radio. This is a form of talk radio, but the models of talk radio, and going back to, like I said, the models of late night television is how you make it broadcast-like. And that's what I got excited about. And in fact, I probably, I usually tell you, hey, you got to look at this. And I remember, you hated PowerPoint, you hated webinars, and that's okay. But, you realize there's places for everything if it accomplishes the goal.
Tell them about the bug guy.
All right. So I'll tell you the story. So anyway, let's just assume if you're listening to this podcast, there's a reason for everybody in the world to podcast. There is, if you got something to say, you can build an audience. And if you got a back end of things to sell, you can make money. So my good friend, Hal Coleman, owned Northfoot and Exterminate in Atlanta. And I did his website. I used to do a lot of local business websites back when I met you, Hal. I'll
be Tom today.
You be Tom today. Don't be Hal.
Okay.
And I was really good, Tom, when you met me at selling local business websites.
Mm-hmm.
The web was new. You could go to a networking meeting. How many people have a website? And probably half the room said no. So,
and it wasn't easy to create then. There was no WordPress. There was nothing in the early days.
Yeah, I was doing front page. I think you did
front page. 97,
Right, I had that. But I could build a nice little business website. So I did Hal's website, and Hal trusted me. That was the whole thing. He knew me, he liked me, he trusted me, and when I told him to do something, he didn't argue with me. And when we did these things, they worked. Well, he did so well with his pest control agency that in around 2012 or so, 2011, he sold it. He sold it for, seven figures. And so now he had a 15-year payout plan. He didn't get it in a lump sum, but he's saying, okay, I don't want to sit on my laurels and do nothing. He said, I could, but he said, I think I got a lot of wisdom that business owners could really benefit from. So let's talk about the model here. Here's a man with years of experience that wants to parlay his experience and to others and then charge them as a consultant or a coach. Kind of similar, some things we do, mentoring programs, call it whatever you want to. So I said, what do you want to do, Hal? Because he was my buddy. He said, I want to be the networking ninja. And he tried that for 3 years. And I said, what's the networking ninja? Well, I'm everything to everybody. Not one piece of business in 3 years.
Very rarely works, yeah.
Yeah, it was too broad. And I said, Hal, you're a bug guy. You've killed bugs for 40 years. You know the bug business. Be the networking ninja for bug guys. Oh, okay. And I said, how do you think bug guys will search? Well, pest control advertising. So we set up Pest Control Marketer, and we set up a blog. Everything that you teach in all of these hundreds of episodes, Hal and I did. Mm-hmm. And so about 2.5 years ago, I said, Hal, podcasting is exploding. More and more people are getting them, liking them. And I said, all we got to do is just meet once a month and parlay the information. Just have a subject. Look, nothing scripted this morning, and we're going a mile a minute.
Yep.
That's because passion of what we love. So we started our podcast. Now, Hal couldn't do technically squat. I did sell him a good microphone, and he saw the value of that. He created a back end of training programs and a consulting. He uses Skype with his microphone and his, everything he needs to do to make his good money. And so he's able to get a good sounding podcast. And then when we get done with the shows, I do the editing and all the other stuff that needs to be done with it. So 2.5 years later, it keeps growing and growing. And the only people that listen to this podcast called the Pest Control Marketing Podcast are pest control owners. Because now
there's not millions of them.
No, there's only 60,000 in the U.S.
Yeah.
And we have probably 2,000 of them listening to us every episode.
So this is tiny numbers, folks. That's and wait till you hear how what it's meant to Hal and Mike.
Well, now because we are the number one, and if you go to Google and search pest control marketing, we dominate. And if you search Pest Control Marketing Podcast, we're everywhere. We're in Spotify. We just like you're everywhere with Through the Commute, we're everywhere. And if somebody found us, if they're not a pest control owner, it's like, why would I listen to the Pest Control Marketing Podcast? You're not interested. I mean, I hope somebody will go check it out because you could substitute any other business and the information is still good. But we narrowed it down to our audience.
You niched it. Yeah.
We niched it. And then we started advertising Hal's coaching program, our membership site, our annual event, and everything that we can think of that is a higher ticket item. I don't want to sell a $5 ebook. We give ebooks away. I learned this from Tom years ago. We wrote an ebook called How to Grow Your Pest Control Business. We give it away at how to grow your pestcontrolbusiness.com. It's a lead generator. We advertise the book on the podcast. We give it away free. And then that builds our list to advertise the podcast. And in the podcast, we do consistently 4 things. Subscribe to us, share us, go see what we have for sale, tune in next week. I mean,
so you're interviewing him, right? Is that the format for this?
Well, the format for us is it's Mr. Online and Mr. Offline. We've got a shtick like a late night TV show.
Okay.
It's like, hi, I'm Mike. I'm Mr. Online. Hi, I'm Hal. I'm Mr. Offline. And today we're going to talk about vehicle graphics.
Cool.
One of our biggest show was what graphics to put on the side of your truck. Another one is jingles. Was very popular. We had a client, and let me tell you the results. It built a 6-figure coaching program for Hal. It sent all kinds of new clients that I sell domains, hosting. In other words, I have back-end services, and we get leads every week. I've been listening to your podcast. You guys are great. What do we got to do to get started? That's what been the results.
Mm-hmm.
I've probably generated more off the radar business that most people, when I go to a podcasting meetup, which I do here in Nashville, and they say, "What's your podcast about?" How to promote your bug business. They laugh. And they go, "Well, why would you do that?" Because Hal makes over $100,000 a year from all the stuff, the business he gets. And that's, he could do more, but he only wants to work 2 days a week. He doesn't work 5 days a week. He goes hunting and fishing during turkey season and deer season.
Right.
And I don't want to work.
It's a lifestyle business. That's what it is.
It's a lifestyle.
I remember you're on your boat doing stuff.
And I continue to do that.
Yeah.
So
you got a lake down there in Tennessee?
Oh, I got 2 of them, man. You got to come down here. I live on Percy Priest Lake now.
Okay. What was the lake up in Atlanta?
It was Lanier in Georgia, and then we got Old Hickory Lake after who was the president that was Old Hickory? Andrew Jackson. Yeah. I live about 5 minutes from his old mansion, and that's why it's Old Hickory Lake, because he was called Old Hickory. So at any rate, as we do our podcast, we realize that the elements and the models of radio and television still work, because what you're doing is still human beings listening to content. And when you don't speak with enthusiasm, when you don't give great information, when you don't break it up and say, now a word from our sponsor, and you don't have theme music. In fact, if you remember when you started, I'm proud to say I am the composer.
Oh, that's right. I forgot. Yeah. The opening to this show and the closing was Mike's music. That's
right. You need music. You need all the elements of radio to sound like radio, because you don't, there's a lot of people that record really poorly recorded content. There's no music, there's no transitions, there's no ads, there's no self-promotion. That's nothing technical. That's just not crossing the T's and dotting the I's of your content.
They're just ego. They're just, hearing themselves talk. But I mean, this is money. We want money for this. And like, so my model and the model that you're just talking about there is, see folks, you can get, a lot of podcasters are just trying to get sponsors. Well, here's the cold reality of that. You can make between $12 and $25 per 1,000 downloads. And let's think of Mike's show, a niche market. Even if he had 2,000 downloads for an episode, maybe they made $50 all right, for that episode. That's crazy. See,
no, it'd never work.
Exactly. It's just not worth the trouble. So you want to develop it's okay to start that way if you have nothing, but you want to immediately develop your own products and make yourself the sponsor. For instance, my school was the sponsor. My mentor program is the sponsor. My professional speaking mentor program is the sponsor on some episodes. $100 and up products are sponsors on some episodes. So that's where you can make the money very quickly with very small amount of audience to start with, because everybody starts with a small audience. And so you don't have to wait and build up for years if you're even lucky, because there's a lot of podcasters coming out now. You don't have to do it if you use our model. So tell them how they could get started with this right away, because there's another thing that we see is a lot of people want podcasts, but they never get started. They just look at a big mountain in front of them. Well, I don't know what to do, how to get started. In this case, Mike has a service where all you got to do is get a decent microphone if you have a computer. Right. And tell them about it.
Okay. Well, what I was doing for Hal is the reason we were successful is because Hal didn't have to do the hard parts. All he had to do is show up.
Yeah. Would this have happened if Hal had to go set up this big mess I have?
No,
it would have never happened.
Never happened in a million years. I used to get on stage and say, if you go to Wikipedia and type in technophobe, there's a picture of Hal. Hal is a sweetheart. He's a brilliant man. He's not a dummy. But when it comes to technology, he struggles. And that's the mindset of a lot of people I've worked with over the years. And I built a course on how to do it yourself. We did a webinar.
Yeah, we did a webinar.
And I sold a lot of that course. But I can watch what people do. And I don't think, I hate to admit this, but not many people, I'm not going to give you a real number, but a majority of the people got excited. They didn't ask for a refund. They're not mad at me.
It was a great course. It was a great course. It's just
something overwhelmed them to where they went, I give up. Now, I thought, what if I created a service that was that was worth my time? I'm kind of disguising coaching as a service.
Yeah.
But the result is all you got to do is show up and answer questions.
On a decent microphone.
Plugged
into your computer. That's all you got to do.
Plugged into your computer. And of course, there's great microphones out there, Snowball and Yeti and Rode and there's 1,000. I mean, finding the microphones, I'll send you a link. I don't even sell microphones anymore.
Yeah, I mean, you can get a used Yeti for $50 on some of the buying apps like, Facebook Marketplace.
Oh, they're everywhere. Yeah. The microphone's not. In fact, interviewing you over Skype with your iPhone, the microphone in the iPhone is good enough.
To get started, exactly right.
To get started.
If you wanted really high quality, you'd get a decent mic.
Well, there's some high-end marketers that record their podcasts on their phone from the dashboard. In other words, they just, and you listen to it, you can hear the road noise, but you can they speak clearly, they have great information, and then they have a production team to dress it up with, with all the other pieces of the equation. But they're, I'll mention the names. Russell Brunson and Ryan Dice record their podcasts on their phone on the way to work. Mm-hmm. So, and I don't know if you know those guys.
Yeah.
I'm not promoting them. I'm just saying they're very successful in their business. I knew that I shared the stage with those guys, and I listened and studied their podcasts. And I know the podcast producer for one of those guys is in my podcast group. In fact, I'm going to give a little plug out for our podcast group. If you ever come to Nashville, we're the Nashville Podcasters. This was another thing that was interesting about that. I watched that group in the last 2 years grow from 60 members to 1,000.
Wow. Yeah. It's going crazy.
So that shows you a trend there.
But just because there's 1,000 doesn't mean there's 1,000 in your niche. Whoever's listening to this.
Yeah, there's 1,000. In fact, one of the guys in my group has the beer podcast. And all they do is sit around and talk about beer, and they have 2 million downloads, and they have sponsors.
They could have the beer belly contest. Podcast.
So they laugh at our model, but our model works. And at any rate, with all I'm saying, Nashville Podcasters, you can even if you can't come to Nashville, their Facebook group has a lot of people that you can reach out to and get questions answered. But the point I'm getting across to is this service was an inspiration to me. I said, what if I hold you accountable? You got to send me questions to ask you every month, and I'll record it and do everything for you. That's the service that I said I want to help some people be successful. And that's why I told you about it. As part of the things I'm doing, now is I set up podcasts for music. We just did the Gary Morris podcast. Gary Morris was had a hit record called "Wind Beneath My Wings."
Right.
He was the first hit on it, and we've got several music artists that are realizing Nashville is full of content creators that creating great content is not their problem, but the internet is. So that's why I moved here. So what am I doing? I'm setting up podcasts for people. And in our niche of marketing, speakers, coaches, consultants, people who make a living building relationships with companies, if you struggle with this, I have a solution, and we'll put a link here in the show notes of how you can take part of that. But it's a done for you interviewer. In other words, Hi, it's Mike Stewart, and welcome to the Tom Antion podcast today. And Tom is an expert at speaking on stage with colorful shirts. Now, let's talk about the shirts that you wear. And you know, I just ask the questions and let you answer questions, and everybody can answer questions if they know their stuff.
Yeah. So basically, most of the time, people have heard me say 1,000,000 times that most done for you programs should be called done to you programs because the people don't actually do stuff for you. But in this case, this is real. All you have to do is get on, send some questions to Mike, and he does everything, editing. You also set up the distribution with iTunes for them and all that stuff too, right?
It's a done for you.
Yeah.
And one of the other things that we're doing, and I'd love to talk about this. How are we doing on time? Because God knows.
Yeah, we got to wrap it up in about 5 minutes or so.
Okay. Well, one of the things that I noticed this year, and I put in podcasts, and we could do a whole nother podcast on what I call SERP term jingle YouTube ads and SERP term podcast ads.
All right. Well, let's do it next time.
Okay. Now, if people search Antion, you are number one organically for that one word.
Yeah, it's kind of it's not
okay.
It's not like John Smith. Yeah.
Yeah. If I search Tom Antion, you dominate Google. So those are your SERP terms. If people know to search your SERP terms, they're going to find you.
Right.
So what we do is we sing your SERP terms in a jingle to create an earworm so that people can't get your SERP terms out of their head.
All right. So hold on to that thought. Let's, when we get off of here, we'll book another episode and go in deep in that very, very soon. So,
well, anyway, so SERP term jingles are a very powerful. In fact, our jingle goes Google Pest Control Marketing will take your business to number one. Call 770-933-0000. We put our phone number, what we do, and our SERP term, and that's the jingle. And this will be a teaser. I'd love to do a SERP term. We could go a whole hour on SERP terms and jingles, but I'm going to do a little test with Tom, and then we can wind this up.
Okay.
This has been great today. Did we cover everything you want to cover? Make sure we're that.
Yeah, I just want to make sure they know everything they would get in the service with you. So you would record it, edit it, interview them,
transcribe it, post it.
Okay, transcribe it, post it, get them signed up with iTunes and other distribution services too. Right?
All they got to do is answer questions and do it with enthusiasm. That's all they got to do.
There you go.
And we leave some uhs in because, hey, we're human beings.
It's normal. Yeah. I mean, it's conversational is better than scripted. You don't want them reading their answers. So I'm sure that you will coach them a little bit on their performance if they have trouble with that. Because I had somebody read every answer to their question, and I just stopped. Since we're pre-recording anyway, I said, look. That sounds like you're a robot on the other end. Put the thing away and just talk to me. And it was 100% better. So.
Well, if somebody couldn't answer questions, I would refund their money and say, practice and come back.
Yeah, and especially anybody that knows their field should be able to answer questions in their field as if they were sitting across talking to a client or something. So it shouldn't be that hard, and it's okay to have some bullet points of things you want to remind yourself, but just don't read it.
Don't write a script. Please don't write a script. Just, hi, I'm interested in that computer. What does it do?
There you go. Yeah.
Hey, I have a toothache. What can you do about this toothache? My sink is leaking. What do you recommend I do?
So this can be for any profession.
It doesn't matter what the business is, and every business can use this. So, at any rate,
so we'll have that in the show notes for you folks. This is episode, what did I say, 242. Yeah, so you go screwthecommute.com/242. We'll have a link there for you to click on and a way to contact Mike if you have questions on anything. It'll be all there in the show notes for you. So thanks, Mike, for coming on, man.
I loved it. I was just looking here. I was episode number 2. So I'm now 242.
242. All right, but we should book this other one within the next week or so, and just do that jingle, because that's a very unique thing I want the audience to hear about.
Okay, well let's talk about SERP terms next time.
Okay, all right, folks. So this has been Mike Stewart, one of my mentors in audio. I mean, the original mentor to get me to create hundreds and hundreds of audios over the last 20 years that have made me a fortune. He bared with me with my dummy it down, and then 20 years later, I now I got all this crap in front of me. So that's the way it goes. So anyway, thanks, Mike, and we'll catch everybody on the next episode. See you later.
Thanks.